If you need an idea for the backdrop of your next video game, then how about Tokyo? Once a quiet fishing village, it quickly grew to become the capital city and cultural hub of Japan. Here you'll find some of the country's most well-known landmarks. Japan is the country that gave us Nintendo and the Sony PlayStation, and it's also the world's third largest video game economy. Not only that, but also it's the world's largest city. All of this means there are countless games set in the Japanese capital, but out of all these virtual Tokyos, which video game Tokyo is the most Tokyo? To find out, I created a Tokyo bucket list, combining gameplay with Tokyo things. I've already made episodes in this series across America and one in London, so this is our first trip to Asia. Just in case you're new here, this is how it works. If you can do the thing in the game will win a point. If you can't do the thing, the game won't win a point. Game with the most points wins. I will also be handing out gold stars to whichever game I think does that thing the best. These aren't worth any extra points, but will help resolve any tiebreakers. Right, let's meet the 10 contestants for Tokyo. Jet Set Radio, Midnight Club 3 Dub Edition Remix, Yakuza Kiwami 2, Ghostwire Tokyo, Project Gotham Racing 4, Destroy All Humans 2 Reproded, Tokyo Xtreme Racer, Persona 5 Royal, World War Z, and Godzilla Save the Earth. There are way more games out there set in Tokyo. This list could have literally just been Yakuza games, so if I've missed out your favourite, please let me know in the comments below. And maybe one day I'll make a Tokyo Part 2. Okay, full disclosure, I've never been to Japan, and until this video I hadn't played a huge amount of Japanese games. I don't even watch anime. I'm literally the least qualified person to make this video. But I have a massive passion for video games, and I love teaching myself about new places in the world. I really hope I do this wonderful city and these interesting games justice. Right, bring on the first challenge. Cross Shibuya Crossing. With most videos in this series, I mostly stick to famous landmarks. But as I mentioned before, Tokyo is the world's largest city, and the games in this list are spread out all over the place. So a lot of the challenges are aimed at more Tokyo way of life kind of things, rather than specific places. But still, the best Tokyo really needs to include a few landmarks, and the crossing at Shibuya has to be one of the most famous. Here you'll find shoppers, businessmen, and Instagram models, fighting it out in what is basically a pedestrianised version of Destruction Derby. This place is a major shopping district and transport hub, and it's always incredibly busy. But how many of our video games include this icon of Tokyo? Godzilla Save the Earth has 2 Tokyo maps. None of them include the crossing, which is weird because it appears in the game's opening cutscene. So they made a version of it somewhere, but because we can't physically cross it, that's a fail. Destroy Humans 2 is set in 1969, so it's by far the oldest setting out of all our games on the list. The famous crossing would have been a lot less built up back then, but even with all that said, I can't find a historically accurate counterpart in this game. Just a very basic pedestrian crossing, so that's a fail. We also don't visit it in World War Z. I was convinced we'd find it in Project Gotham Racing 4, as we drive over many bright and colourful neon-filled crosswalks. But it turns out the street circuit we're racing on is in the Shinjuku district of the city, so we're too far north to visit Shibuya. Yakuza Kiwami 2 is also in the Shinjuku region. We do get to visit the parts of the city for the game's story, but none of these take us to Shibuya. Tokyo Xtreme Racer has us blasting our way around the city's highways, so unfortunately we're not going to find the crossing up there. So far, fails all round. The rollerblading madness of Jet Set Radio is split up into multiple small maps. One of them is clearly based on Shibuya, with all its high-rise buildings, pedestrian walkways, and bright neon signs. And we can find these crosswalks. Sure, there's only 2 of them, unlike the 5 we see in real life, and there aren't enough roads heading into this intersection. But because this has been quite a low-scoring round so far, I'm going to allow this on a pass, but only just, but you will get run over if you try and skate across. Midnight Club 3 probably covers the biggest area out of all these games, and you'll find many of the city's famous landmarks, including Shibuya Crossing. It's a nice little recreation, but nowhere near busy enough with pedestrian foot traffic. Not only can we drive straight across, you can do this really cool ramp as well. That's a pass. A lot of Persona 5 story takes place in Shibuya, and the crossing is the main focus point. It's one of the first places you visit in the game, and the team of characters you accumulate whilst playing through this game will often meet up here. It is a really great cartoony recreation of this area, and it feels quite busy with all these pedestrians walking around. Okay, so maybe we can't physically walk across it ourselves. Instead we go up to it, and the game asks us if we'd like to cross, and then we teleport over to the other side. But we definitely did cross the crossing. I'm guessing the level designers couldn't be bothered to code all the cars and traffic lights, which is fair enough. But the best version of Shibuya Crossing has to go to Ghostwire Tokyo. This is where your spooky adventure begins, and it looks absolutely incredible in the game. It is so highly detailed and looks perfect. The neon signs and LED screens glow with a bright ambience against the night sky. The only disappointing thing is the lack of people, but that's due to story reasons. In this game, a mysterious grey fog has covered part of central Tokyo, replacing all the people in the usually busy streets with ghosts and other demons. And then you have to fight them. Not just the slender men, but the slender women, and the slender children too! I hate them! But despite the lack of people, it's definitely worthy of our first gold star. Explore a market alley. One thing you'll find plenty of in Tokyo are narrow pedestrianised streets, full of shops and stores, selling all kinds of goods and services, food, entertainment, basically anything you could ever want. One of the most famous of which is the Kabukicho district. To get a gold star we need to find a good recreation of this area, but featuring any narrow pedestrianised market street will be worthy of a pass. Rather disappointingly, we don't find anything like this on our stroll through the zombie-filled streets of World War Z. Being the size of a skyscraper, it's hard to see any detail down there while stomping around as Godzilla, but all the Tokyo streets appear to be wide and full of traffic, so no marked alleyways for us to squeeze our giant lizard toes into. We also won't find any in Tokyo Xtreme. As I mentioned before, PGR4 is in the Shinjuku part of the city. This is where you'll find the real-life Kabukicho district. And look, we can even see the well-known bright red archway. But rather disappointingly, because it's behind an indestructible crash barrier, we can't drive down there for a sneaky peek. As cool as it is to see it, it's still a fail. Whilst driving around the streets in Midnight Club 3, I couldn't specifically find Kabukicho, but this being a map packed full of shortcuts, I was able to find a few alleyways to drive down. They may be a little on the wide side, but no cars are driving down here. Well, except me, obviously. But we can see plenty of bright neon lights, and a variety of different stores. It may not be super detailed, but that's a pass. If we put on our disguise and destroy humans too, we can have a good old explore round. And we can find an absolutely lovely traditional Japanese market street, selling all sorts of handcrafted goods and food. There's also this alley which is a lot more narrow and dirtier, and it's definitely giving a very sleazy Kabukicho vibe. It's highly detailed and looks great. One of the maps in Jet Set Radio is set in a district of market streets. This area looks a little bit more old-fashioned and more traditional, but there aren't enough neon signs for my liking. In real life, our eyes should be absolutely suffocated by them. I'm not sure it's possible for your eyes to be suffocated, but I think that's a pretty good analogy for the sheer amount of lights you'll see. But it's nice, another pass. As I mentioned in the previous round, Ghostwire Tokyo is set around Shibuya, and not Shinjuku, but we can still find plenty of Market Street alleyways to explore, including the well-known Shibuya Market Street. Everything is highly detailed. Each facade feels unique and different. There are also a few convenience stores we can pop into to purchase goods from strange levitating cats with two tails. Disappointingly, I don't think this is what shopkeepers look like in Japan in real life. You can also visit the Shibuya Market Street in Persona 5, and again it's really nicely detailed. We can also visit other real life market streets, like the Sun Road in Kichijoji. I really hope I'm pronouncing these names correctly. Apologies if not. And we even get to visit Kabukicho. It does feel a bit strange in this game though, seeing how you play as a school student, because this is kind of a seedy red light district area that kids really shouldn't be hanging around in. It does look particularly good in this game though. The amount of neon signs is absolutely insane and looks just like it does in real life. This game also has a ton of stores so you can buy books, weapons, rent DVDs, buy food, there's also arcades, and other side activities. It's a great game just for exploring around and chilling out. The gold star for this one has to go to Yakuza. Most of the games in this series take place in Kamurocho, which is a fictionalized version of Kabukicho. It even has an identical archway, and they did an excellent job of recreating this district. We are bombarded by bright neon signs, and it has just the right amount of dirt and sleaziness. It's packed with pedestrians and tourists, and has many explorable shops and other services we can use. Yakuza wins the gold star for this round. Race a bullet or metro train. It is estimated that 40 million people travel by rail in the greater Tokyo metropolitan area every single day. So it's a huge part of daily life in the city. Japan is also home to the awesome Shinkansen, or bullet trains. So how many of our games will let you race them, on foot or in a vehicle? There aren't any railway lines in Destroy All Humans 2 or World War Z. You can make your way onto elevated tracks in Ghostwire, and even head down into underground metro stations. But because everyone's been dusted, the trains are no longer running, so that's a fail. We can find a large rail yard in Godzilla, but rather disappointingly none of the trains are running. But what is probably the biggest sin is that the trains we see in the yard are clearly London Underground trains, with their curved roofs and red and white liveries. So they just reused assets from a London map that's also in this game. Very disappointing. We get our first look at our Shinkansen in Yakuza 2, but it only appears in this one cutscene. So unfortunately we can't get off and race the thing. Boo! I was tearing around the expressways in Tokyo Xtreme. I spotted a few railway lines going overhead. Some are empty, but then I found one that has some very low detailed trains running along it in both directions. There are plenty of Japanese cars to choose from. Beating them in a race is really easy. The train models may lack detail, but that's still our first pass. We may not be on the expressways in Project Gotham Racing 4, but we do pass under a short section of railway. And yes, there are animated trains once again. We can't race very far, but that's still a pass. One of the maps in Jet Set Radio includes a train station, and grinding along the rails is a lot of fun. But be careful, because trains do show up and they will run you over. But this also means we get to race them, using our rocket-powered rollerblades. So that's another pass. One of the best rail systems we'll find amongst our games is in Midnight Club 3. There's a large stretch of elevated track that runs from one side of the map to the other, where you can find multiple, highly detailed trains going up and down this line. You can race them from below, but the inclusion of a couple of stations means you can head up onto the tracks and race the trains from there. No bullet trains though, just your standard metro trains. Midnight Club 2 also included a Tokyo map. It's almost identical to this one, with a few minor changes, one of them being the train models. In that game they look more like intercity express trains, but still, no bullet trains. I almost gave the gold star to Midnight Club 3, because it's definitely the best game for racing trains. But for the best rail network, we really need to go to Persona 5. The metro plays a very important role in this game, as you use it every day to get to school and explore the rest of Tokyo. There's a fully explorable station with multiple lines. The trains are even different colours depending on which line you're using, and they're correct to what you'll see in real life, like these bright red and yellow trains to the Ginza line. And with the trains being animated, you can run alongside them at the station. So we can't race them for very long, but still, that's a pass. This game also does a great job by showing us how crowded and busy these stations and trains are. Look, everyone's crammed in there like bao buns in a bento box. Persona 5 Royal picks up its first gold star. But I'm kind of disappointed we didn't see more bullet trains in this challenge. If your country has something as awesome as a bullet train, put it in your game! Battle a kaiju or giant robot. From Godzilla to Gundam, Japan has a pop culture obsession with massive monsters and machines. So it makes sense for gargantuan mechs, robots and kaijus will show up in our Japanese games. But which ones? And can we have an awesome fight? Rather unsurprisingly, we won't find any kaiju in any of our car games. So PGR4, MC3 and TXR all fail this one. In Jet Set Radio, there are multiple skater gangs we need to take out, one of which is Poison Jam. They may like to dress up as monsters, but kaiju they certainly aren't. They're just little people-sized. In WW Zombie, you take on thousands upon thousands upon thousands of zombies. There are a few special variants, including bulls and juggernauts. They may be big, but they're still far away from kaiju. They're just big people-sized. You also get to fight big people in Yakuza Kiwami 2, but surely no giant monsters or robots, right? Well, if we head to an arcade, we can play the classic Sega game Virtual On, where you get to battle giant robots. And it's a lot of fun. This may be a bit of a loophole, but I think it definitely counts as a pass, as here we're celebrating the obsession that Tokyo has with arcades. They're literally all over the place, and it's a very popular pastime in the city. And for that reason, we're going to get our first pass for this round. In Destroy Humans 2, you're mostly fighting just, well, people. But then, out of nowhere, comes the mission Kojira Kaiju Battle. The giant beast, who is called Kojira, used to be a schoolgirl with bright pink hair, who has been transformed into a Godzilla-esque abomination using quantum radiation, which is definitely the most Japanese sentence I've said so far. At first you fight her using a flying saucer, but this proves ineffective, especially as she can regenerate her health by destroying buildings. So you have to get on the ground and use whatever you can to try and take her down. It's a very fun boss fight, and a lot different from other missions you'll play in the game. Definitely worthy of a pass. In the turn-based fighting battles of Persona 5, you take on all manner of crazy enemies. They come in a huge variety of shapes and sizes. But do we get to fight any giant monsters? There are plenty of big boss battles throughout the game. Some of them may just about qualify as a kaiju. You get to fight one particularly big robot that's shaped like a giant piggy bank. But then some of them are absolutely massive. Like this giant manticore thing we have to fight from on top of a pyramid. Look at the size of that thing, that's definitely a kaiju. But then in the final boss fight, we enter our final form to tackle an Avengers level threat. Look at the size of that thing! Undoubtedly a kaiju battle. Ghostwire Tokyo also has a variety of different demons and ghouls we can fight. Some of them are pretty big, but not exactly what I'd call a kaiju. In the midpoint of the game, these shadow giants appear and start stomping all over the city. I thought I was about to fight one, but it turns out they just kind of spawn smaller enemies to attack you, which is a bit rubbish. But then finally, towards the end of the game, we get to fight this big spider beastie thing. It can crush a whole bus under its foot, and stands about towards a 5-story building. Maybe a little on the small side, but still definitely what I'd call a kaiju. Well, we all know who's going to win the gold star for this one. Godzilla Save the Earth. This game is literally nothing but kaiju battles. All your favourites are here. Godzilla, Godzilla, Mechagodzilla, and the rest. I have to say the fights in this game are a lot of fun, with a huge amount of variation with all the different monsters. With lots of different attacks and abilities. Of course we've got atomic breath, but then some of the more robotic ones have missiles and things like that. Some of them like Rodan and Mothra can fly. And you can pick up entire buildings and throw them at each other. It's stupid fun and definitely worthy of a gold star. Right, for all the challenges down, let's take a look at the scoreboard. Persona 5 Royal is currently on top, being the only game to score a point in each round so far. Ghostwire Tokyo is second, with 3 points and 1 gold star, with Midnight Club 3 and surprisingly Jet Set Radio in joint third, both with 3 points each. World War Z is the only game so far not to score a single point, with Project Gotham Racing 4 and Tokyo Xtreme Racer with 1 point each. But there's still a long way to go. Swim in the moat to the Imperial Palace. Right in the middle of the central part of Tokyo we'll find the Imperial Palace, the main residence for the Emperor of Japan. Think Buckingham Palace but more fortified. It's a large compound, with green spaces and many buildings of various ages. It sits on 3 islands surrounded by a moat. So let's go for a swim. We won't find the Imperial Palace in Ghostwire Tokyo, Yakuza 2 or Project Gotham Racing 4. Most all these games take place in the wrong part of the city. There's also nothing resembling it in World War Z and Jet Set Radio. In Persona 5 we get to visit many palaces. Okay, let me take a moment to explain this absolutely bonkers game. You spend half your time in the real world. As a school student in Tokyo, you'll make friends and explore the city. In the other half of the game, you and your friends use a mysterious app on your phone to journey into the mind palaces of some very bad people. These are subconscious projections of the real world, and take the form of palaces. Here you fight various monsters to ultimately perform a heist, stealing something of great value to the bad person. This will then change their heart or personality in the real world. So it's basically like the Christopher Nolan film Inception, but with a talking feline and a schoolgirl in a latex catsuit. Oh Japan, you can be so weird sometimes. This is where all the turn-based combat takes place. There's one shaped like a medieval castle, an Egyptian pyramid, a museum and even a space station, but nothing resembling the Imperial Palace. And we also don't get to visit it in real life when exploring the city away from these mental palaces. In theory, we should be able to see it in Tokyo Xtreme Racer, as the real life highways pass right next to it, but we can't see it in the game, so that's a fail. I thought Godzilla was going to fail this one, as you can't find the palace on the 2 Tokyo maps, but turns out there's a bonus level where we have to beat up Jet Jaguar and what I'm assuming is his son. We get to fight here. Sure, it's very basic and lacking many of the buildings we'll see in real life, but that's definitely a representation of the Imperial Palace, complete with a moat. Sure, it's only ankle deep on old Anguirus here, but still that counts. In Destroy Humans 2, we can find a building that very much resembles the Imperial Palace, and it looks absolutely gorgeous. The overall layout isn't very accurate, but it does have a moat, sort of, as it's surrounded by ocean on 3 sides, so it's kind of a moat. I'm going to allow it a pass, considering how few games have passed this round so far. It's not really proper swimming, but if you jump into the water for long enough, eventually your shield will fail, and you'll get a right royal dunking. But the best Imperial Palace has to go to Midnight Club 3. It's by far the biggest and most detailed out of all the games on our list. Sure, it's still not 100% accurate, missing most of the buildings you'll see in real life, but it is in the right part of the city, and it sits on 3 islands. It does get the main part of the castle right, and includes some of the surrounding parkland. There's even some underground tunnels, which could be part of the castle's old bomb shelter. And also there's plenty of moats for us to drive round in, so Midnight Club 3 picks up its first gold star. Complete a circuit on the Shuto. The Shuto is Tokyo's highway network. It is characterized by tunnels and overpasses that thread between tall buildings. It's surprisingly narrow, especially considering the size of the city. This is because less than a quarter of Tokyo residents actually own a car. This is due to the lack of private parking and Tokyo's highly reliable and efficient public transport systems. To complete this challenge you'll need to be in a vehicle. This means we'll get a few early failures. There's no driving in Yakuza, so that's a fail. In Ghostwire there's some riding around on a motorbike in a cutscene, and you can jump onto an overhead section of the expressway. It doesn't form any kind of loop though, and cuts straight across the lower part of the map. This is also the case in Jet Set Radio. You can find part of the Shuto under construction, but it's only a small section so we can't complete a lap. The main objective of the first Tokyo level in World War Z is to guide a bus down the Shuto network. Again, the section we see is a straight line, so no circuit, another fail. Godzilla also fails. You might be able to argue that Mechagodzilla is a vehicle, but the sections of highway we see in the game once again don't form a circuit. But they are fully smashable, so that's something. A flying saucer in Destroy Humans 2 is definitely a vehicle, but there's no sign of the Shuto whatsoever. Surprisingly, we get to drive a vehicle in Persona 5, but not on the expressway, as all the driving sections take place in an alternate version of the metro tunnels. One of your party members is a cat that can transform into a van, and they also might be a person? Try not to think about it too much. We can see an on-ramp to get onto the Shuto in Project Gotham Racing 4, but unfortunately it's not part of the circuit so we can't go up there. Midnight Club 3 finally passes this one, as it covers a large area of Tokyo, and it gets all the details correct. There are tunnels, overpasses that snake in between the buildings, complicated interchanges, and all the correct signage and colouring on the roads. It's a great place to reach top speeds flying around the map. As good as all this is, it's still not quite as good as Tokyo Xtreme Racing. This game was literally nothing but driving on the Shuto, and the in-game map features about 100 miles of roadway. Even with the limited graphics of the PlayStation 2, there are tunnels, overpasses, and complicated intersections. It's a very impressive recreation, and feels just like you're driving around Tokyo in the middle of the night. TXR gets a gold star. Hey, that rhymes. Go to a Sento. A Sento is a traditional public bathhouse, and they can be found all over Tokyo. It's still quite a popular pastime, especially with the older generation, but they are nowhere near as busy as they used to be, due to modern buildings now having their own private baths and showers. So which of our games will let us visit one? Well, not our 3 car games, that's for sure. You can't fit a car in a public bathhouse, and you certainly can't fit a Godzilla inside one. We don't visit any in World War Z, Jet Set Radio, or Destroy Humans 2. Yakuza, I said bathhouse, not bathroom. Well, if it had said bathroom, Yakuza 2 would have definitely won the gold medal, with this fully interactable peeing game, and a side mission where you help out a dude who's stuck on a toilet. But sorry, no Sento, no pass. In Persona 5 we can finally visit a bathhouse. There's one directly opposite our apartment, and it's a great way to pass the time with friends or on your own. Taking a bath there will even boost your charisma, because there's nothing like sharing the same bathwater with a bunch of naked strangers to improve someone's sex appeal. But my favourite bathhouse came in Ghostwire Tokyo. It's so incredibly detailed, with the entrance split into 2 parts of men and women, a highly detailed locker room, and the washroom itself, with all the small showers and large baths. It has just the right level of dirt and grime for your standard public Sento, and it has a painting of Mount Fuji on the wall, which is very typical of Sentos all over Tokyo. Even the bathhouse in Persona 5 had one. I also love the detail of all the slippers on the floor. It's a perfect recreation, and worthy of a gold star. Layout accuracy. Normally with this round I like to pick 2 landmarks to travel between, and see how accurate the route is in the games compared to real life. But because all these games are set all over the place, I'm trying something a little bit different this time round, and comparing each video game map to the exact same district or area in real life. There needs to be at least some resemblance to the real world to pass. World War Z doesn't have any kind of top-down map, and the lack of real-world landmarks makes it impossible to figure out exactly where each of these missions takes place. So for that reason it gets a fail. Jet Set Radio takes place in the fictional city of Tokyoto, except for when the voice actors forget this and just call it Tokyo. Either way, the map we see in game is far too vague to compare to anything in real life, so that's another fail. Destroy Humans 2's map also takes place in a fictional version of Tokyo, this time called Takashima. It sits on an island, so looks nothing like the real world Tokyo, plus all the landmarks are in completely the wrong place. Fail. Next! Godzilla also gets a fail because its 2 Tokyo maps are just, well, all over the place. Part of the Tokyo Bay map resembles some of the wharfs we see around the docks, but there's no sign of the Rainbow Suspension Bridge, which you should see here. And by the look of these buildings, this is supposed to be Shinjuku, but it's on the completely wrong side of the harbour. With the other map where we see Tokyo Tower, it's way too close to the water, and we see yet another version of Shinjuku in completely the wrong place. This is what the map looks like for Tokyo Xtreme Racing, next to a real life map of the Tokyo Expressway. At first, it doesn't look like there's much of a resemblance, but if I do this, rotate it a tiny bit, and highlight just the roads that appear on the map, and boom, there we go! Turns out it's actually a pretty good representation. Sure, the in-game version has been simplified, with some sections made larger and others smaller, but as you drive around you can see all the highways have been given their correct names and locations, like West Ginza Junction, Edo Bridge, and Hey! There's no need for that kind of language, that's completely uncalled for. Foul language aside, that's our first pass. Midnight Club 3 map is an extremely shrunken down version of Tokyo. The street layouts are mostly a basic grid like we see in Tokyo, and we can see the harbour and the Sumida River. I took some of the landmarks from real life that I knew were in the game, and compared their geographical locations, and most of them are pretty good. Tokyo Tower and Tokyo Dome are a little bit too far west, but they are trying to cram a lot of city into a tiny space, so I'll let them off. That's a pass. I did a similar thing with some of the locations in Persona 5, and again all the landmarks are in the correct place. Not only that, but all the metro lines you'll need to reach these locations are also correct in the game. The global locations are also pretty accurate. For example, with Shibuya, we can see the crossing, with the plaza opposite, and even a little statue of a dog. There's a railcar cafe and an entrance to the station, all in their correct places, matching what you'll see in real life. Speaking of Shibuya, Ghostwire Tokyo also does a good job with its layout. Here's the crossing and we can see the railway line that runs alongside it, along with a section of highway below. We can also see this area with tall skyscrapers that we'll find in the game, and Yoyogi Park to the north. But I have to say there is a lot of other landmarks that are missing. There's a massive sport complex, including the really cool looking National Gymnasium. It's far from a one-to-one recreation, but definitely does enough to pass. Now let's take a look at Shinjuku in Yakuza 2. Here is where the archway sits in game compared to real life. Then we have an area of narrow alleyways and this distinct looking building. We have a tall skyscraper next to a plaza and an arcade. There's a railway line off to the west, and this is a simplified overview of the street layout. Damn, that's pretty accurate. Of course it's been shrunk down a bit, and there are bits missing and parts added, but that is really good. But the winner for this one absolutely has to go to Project Gotham Racing 4. This is also in Shinjuku. Looking at the real life map, I was able to figure out exactly where this racetrack takes place, using the starting point of this distinctive ring of traffic lights. I then pulled up a real world map and figured out because of the location of this round building here, we must be going in this direction. So I started to draw out the racetrack. We turn left here and there's a park on the right hand side, just like in the real world. Then we go down, pass under some footbridges and into an underpass. And yeah, I just kept doing this, following the road in game, whilst drawing on my map in real life. And eventually, I was able to map out the entire racetrack. And it's amazingly detailed. I think it might actually be a one-to-one recreation, which is pretty amazing. And you can do this for all maps in the game, whether it's London, Las Vegas, and Petersburg. Really well thought out, very clever. Definitely a gold star for PGR4. Right, let's go back to the scoreboard. Persona 5 and Midnight Club 3 are now joint first, both with 6 points and 1 gold star. Ghostwire Tokyo is just behind, with 5 points and 2 gold stars. We then have 4 games, all on 3 points, with World War Z still at the bottom, yet to score a single point. Looks like we have 3 frontrunners right now, but it could still all change. Right, what next? Reach the top of Tokyo Tower or the Sky Tree. Paris, Seattle, Pisa, Blackpool. These world famous cities all have one iconic tower, but Tokyo decided it wanted 2. Here we need to get as high as the viewing platform of either of these 2 iconic towers. We can see the Sky Tree in Wawaza's lobby screen, but it doesn't actually appear in the game. There's a tall skyscraper we can reach the top of in Jet Set Radio, but it bears no resemblance to either of the famous towers. Yakuza also has a tall tower called the Millennium Tower, but again, that's not the one we're looking for. Gotham 4 is yet again in the wrong part of town, so no pass there. We can find the tower in Midnight Club, but there's only cars and bikes in this game, so no aircraft to reach the top of the tower, unfortunately. We can also drive past it in Tokyo Xtreme Racing, but again, no way to reach the top. I thought Godzilla was going to pass this one really easily, especially for the flying kaiju, but disappointingly, Tokyo Tower sits just outside the map behind an invisible force field. It's so close, but I cannot allow a pass for this one. I don't know why they put it here on the edge of the map, because it's still fully destructible. Sorry Godzilla, but you've just missed out on an easy point. So far we've not seen any sky trees, but here comes Persona 5, as one of the places we can visit is the top of the Sky Tree. It may not be explorable, but that's definitely a pass. We can find a version of Tokyo Tower in Destroy Humans 2, right in the middle of the map. And with our trusty jetpack, I'm sure getting up to the viewing platform will be no problem. Oh, just a little bit short. Well, if you've seen my San Francisco and London episodes, you probably know what's going to happen next. Well, actually no. I tried again, from a little bit higher this time, and yes, finally made it. That's a 100% Legitimate pass. But what about Ghostwire? Well, you can see Tokyo Tower, but it's outside the playable map, so I thought this was going to be a fail. But guess where you have to go to start the final boss fight? Tokyo Tower, with a fully explorable interior, and it looks great. It's also quite accurate to what you'll see in real life. And we go all the way up to the viewing platform. And if that's not high enough for you, we have this trippy boss fight directly above the tower. Or are we below it? Hard to tell. Either way, because this version is extremely detailed, Ghostwire picks up another gold star. Worship at a shrine or temple. It's fair to say Japanese culture is very traditional and spiritual. The main religions of the country are Shinto and Buddhism, and as a result we can find many beautifully decorated temples and shrines all over Tokyo. Some of them have now become very well-known tourist destinations, so can we find any in our games? Worshipping is open for interpretation on this one. We won't be worshipping anywhere in Project Gotham Racing 4, Jet Set Radio, Tokyo Xtreme Racing, or Godzilla Save the Earth, because there are no shrines or temples. Although I will say there are a few buildings that might be shrines. They have that traditional peaked Japanese roof, the overhangs, but they could equally just be large Japanese restaurants for all we know, so I can't allow a pass for that. In Yakuza 2 we can visit Osaka Castle. Okay, two things wrong there. It's a castle, not a temple, and it's in Osaka, not Tokyo, so I can't allow a pass for that. And if I did, I'd have to go back and give Godzilla a pass, because it also has an Osaka map which has Osaka Castle in it. Wrong place, wrong building, no pass. In WWZ, you get to pass through the grounds of this little temple, and it looks very ornate and gorgeous. I don't think it's based on any temple or shrine in particular, and just borrows a lot of the design details from many traditional shrines. I prayed for safe passage on my way through, and the gods must have listened, and made it through without a scratch. That's a pass, and also World War Z's first point. Well done! In Midnight Club 3, we can visit Sensoji Temple, complete with its famous pagoda tower, and you can drive right on inside. I did some worshipping in the form of donuts, to please the god of tire smoke. Thinking about it, this is probably highly disrespectful. I'll have the driver commit seppuku at once. We can find a number of shrines and temples in Destroy Humans 2 as well, and they take inspiration from a couple of real-life temples. This one I'm pretty sure is based on the Gotokuji Temple. And I really like the staircase, with all the torii gates. That's the name for these Japanese-style arches, which is based on the real-life High Shrine. Crypto prayed for redemption, for all his misdeeds, and even rang a gong to clear the air of all that bad karma. We can also find a version of the High Shrine in Ghostwire Tokyo. There are many shrines dotted all over the map, and they've actually turned the shrines into a gameplay mechanic, as if you worship here, it clears the map of all the evil fog that damages you if you walk into it. So they are essential if you want to complete the game and explore the map further. Persona 5 also incorporates its temples and shrines into gameplay mechanics. There's one simply known as the Old Temple, which you can find in the Kichijoji district. If you go here and speak to a monk, it allows you to meditate and pass the time, which will grant you more spirit points, which basically means you can use more magic. We can also visit the Meiji Shrine with friends, all on your own, and this is a shrine you can visit in real life. Here you can donate money and help boost your relationship with one of the characters by thinking about them. I love the detail that it includes the real life prayer process of 2 bows, 2 claps and a final bow. And for this reason I think Persona 5 deserves the gold star. It's very respectful and cleverly incorporates worship and temples into gameplay mechanics. Cause shipping disruption at the docks. The port of Tokyo sits right in the city's heart, and it's basically the whole reason the city exists. From its humble beginnings of a fishing village, it became an important location for trade, and now is one of the largest ports in the Pacific Ocean. If you own anything from Nintendo, Sony, Toshiba, Panasonic, Fujitsu, there's a good chance it will pass through here. So how many games let us visit the docks and break stuff? Lots of fails to begin with, including Ghostwire, Yakuza Kiwami 2, Persona 5, and Gotham Racing. None of these games let you visit the docks. It's possible you pass over the docks while travelling along the highway in Xtreme Racer, but we can't go down there and smash anything. One of the 3 levels in World War Z takes place in Tokyo docks. You may think because of the zombie apocalypse there isn't much shipping happening, but there is, as the main objective is to get a bunch of survivors onto a cruise ship that's docked at the port. You basically have to defend it while it makes its final preparations to leave. So if you fail the mission and the zombies get on board, you've definitely disrupted shipping, albeit in a rather unconventional way. But to be honest, the main thing in this challenge was to be able to visit the docks, so that's a pass. With that in mind, Jet Set Radio also lets us visit the docks. and we can cause a huge amount of disruption, smashing our way straight through these warehouses. Okay, so they may be converted into houses at this point, but these guys probably work in shipping at the docks. And look, here's some boxes and freight I could smash. Again, bit unconventional, more of a residential area than a dock, but there is this of the map in an industrial area, so I think I'm just about going to allow a pass for this one. It would have been harsh to fail on a technicality. We can visit an old-fashioned version of the docks in Destroy Humans 2. This is obviously an oversimplified version of the docks. And even back in the 60s, it would have been more industrial than this, but still, we can cause a whole lot of disruption, hurling shipping containers and just, well, blowing stuff up. So yeah, that's a pass. We can find a more accurate and detailed version of the docks in Midnight Club 3. It sits on a man-made island in the middle of the bay, just like part of the port in real life. Surprisingly, there wasn't a lot of stuff here I could smash up. But I can take down these streetlights. Good luck loading stuff now, you can't see anything. The destruction's a little bit poor, but it's a decent model of the docks, so that's a pass. The best game for shipping disruption is Godzilla Save the Earth. You can find a large area of docks, sticking out into the water on a man-made wharf, just like the many you'll see in the real-life port of Tokyo. And we can literally level the whole port. Fuel containers, cranes, warehouses, they're no match for my giant lizard feet. And you can also yeet whole container ships at each other. Shipping well and truly disrupted, that's a gold star. Enjoy a view of Mount Fuji. Mount Fuji, of course, is the gorgeous and iconic dormant volcano that sits just beyond Tokyo's city limits. It is possible to see it from the city if you're up high enough and it's a clear day. But it's fair to say a lot of the photos out there, with the giant mountain looming over the city skyline, are photoshopped. But there's nothing wrong with a little bit of artistic license in our video games. So let's go and enjoy a view of this sacred mountain. You can't see in Project Gotham Racing or Tokyo Xtreme. The fact that this game's set at night certainly doesn't help this matter. We also can't spot it in Midnight Club 3. It is on this billboard, but that definitely doesn't count. We're also going to roll out Persona 5. As you travel through one of the mined palaces that resembles an art gallery, you do enter a painting that has Mount Fuji on it, and a torii gate. But I can't allow it. It's a painting, it's not real. I know it's animated, but so are TV screens and I wouldn't allow one of those. It's not there in Jet Set Radio, and the best World War Z can do is have it appear on its loading screen. In Godzilla Save the Earth, you finally get a look at this beautiful mountain, and it's absolutely massive as it sits in the background. This is obviously way too close to Tokyo. It looked like the space lead in Shinjuku, so that's a pass. We get a really nice look at it in Ghostwire. Towards the end of the story, we jump through a portal and enter the other side, just on the edge of the afterlife. And there it is in all its glory. Admittedly, this is really just a long cutscene, but I still think it counts. Well, if we're going to allow a pass on a cutscene, that means Yakuza 2 will also get a pass for this blink and you'll miss it cameo from the mountain. And yep, that's the exact same cutscene we saw before, for the bullet train round. Oh look, there it is again, out the window. You may think this should mean I give WWZ a pass as well, because that's kind of in a cutscene, but to be fair, that's just in the game's lobby. The game hasn't actually started yet, so sorry, I'm not returning that fail. So far, all our views of Mount Fuji have been pretty weak, it's fair to say. But luckily for us, Destroy Humans 2 saves the day with this absolutely gorgeous view of Mount Fuji, or at very least a mountain heavily inspired by it. It sits off on the north side of the city, and it looks great, so that's a gold star for Destroy Humans. Its first one actually, well done. Let's check the scoreboard one last time before our final 3 challenges. Wow, it's so close now. The top 3 games all have 8 points, so it's all down to the gold stars. Ghostwire is in first place with 3, then Persona 5 with 2, and Midnight Club 3 with 1. But we still can't rule out Destroy Humans 2, sat just behind with 7 points. World War Z is still in the bottom, but at least it has 2 points now. So does Project Gotham Racing 4, which is only ahead because of 1 gold star for the layout round. Right, here we go, 4 games all in the running. It's down to these last 3 challenges. Use a vending machine. Okay, so no vending machines can be found all over the world, but Japan has turned them into something of an obsession. They're convenient and fit nicely into the on-the-go lifestyle, and you can find vending machines for all sorts of things. How about some fish soup, lingerie, a fresh banana, or even a car? Will any vending machines prove useful in our games? We can spot a few of them in Project Gotham Racing, but being stuck behind a crash barrier, they're absolutely no use to us. They're very few and far between in Midnight Club 3, which is very unrealistic. You can destroy them, but that's about it. We can find some highly detailed ones in World War Z, but other than target practice, they don't provide any other use, so that's a fail. I thought I found some kind of alien loophole in Destroy Humans 2, as you have this ability called transmogrification, where you can take everyday objects and turn them into ammo for your guns. If I could do this to a vending machine, in theory I would be obtaining something useful out of it. But it turns out the vending machines aren't actually physical objects, and are instead part of the buildings that they sit next to. You can't even destroy them, unless of course you break down the whole building. Sorry Destroyer Humans, you tried, but that's a fail. I could also find a few dotted around the map in Jet Set Radio. Again, you can't use them, but please stay tuned for this very important announcement. Thank you. There are no vending machines on the highway in Tokyo Xtreme, and I couldn't spot any in Godzilla. It looks like all the street furniture down there is just reused assets from the American maps. Very lazy. You can find vending machines all over the place in Ghostwire Tokyo. Most of them are out of order, but you can find a few where the lights are still on. And yes, we can dispense soft drinks to give us a tiny boost of health. That's our first pass. There are also a handful dotted around the map in Persona 5, and again they can be used for health items. Just like Ghostwire, they dispense soft drinks for a small health boost during battle. But the best game for vending machines has to go Yakuza Kiwami 2. They can be found all over the place. Again, it looks like soda's back on the menu, boys, but what Yakuza gets right is the sheer amount of them. It's estimated there are about 4 million vending machines in Tokyo. That's one vending machine for every 23 people. And Yakuza 2 is the game that gets the sheer amount of vending machines correct. And for that reason it gets the gold star. Chill out in a Zen garden. These traditional gardens can be found all over Japan, and are a place to reflect and meditate. The main characteristics include large ornamental stones, gravel that's been raked into ripples to resemble water, neatly pruned bushes and trees, and water features. So let's sit back, chill out, and feel some zen. Unfortunately we can't do that in Godzilla, Tokyo Xtreme, or Gotham Racing. There was also nothing in Jet Set Radio, and I looked all over the map in Midnight Club 3 and couldn't find any. There's a large park on the map near the Imperial Palace. Sure, we see torii gates and a few cherry blossoms, but it's missing a lot of the important details, so I can't allow a pass for this. We can find loads of gardens in Persona 5. We can find a very modern looking garden in one of the Mind Palaces, along with the Garden of Eden. And later on in the game, you can do some rooftop gardening. I also found this garden that's themed around money. I guess you could say it's a yen garden. But none of these are Zen gardens, so I thought Persona 5 was going to fail this one. But then I noticed something. When we meditate at the old temple, look, an ornate stone, some gravel raked into ripples, and we're obviously in a courtyard. Yes, this is definitely a Zen garden. Unfortunately we don't get to look around it, but we're definitely chilling out there. That's still a pass. World War Z also gets a pass, as we get to pass through a lovely little Zen garden. We can see large ornate stones, and more gravel that's been raked into ripples. Just ignore all the dead bodies. There's also a particularly nice water feature, with some small waterfalls and a pond, and even an ornate bridge. Very nice. Yakuza 2 also has a very nice looking Zen garden in one of the clan HQs. It's a bit more modern than the ones we've seen so far, but it sits in a courtyard, with a small pond at the centre, with very neatly trimmed bushes, and bamboo growing. There are large patches of gravel. Disappointingly it's not been raked, but still, that's definitely a pass. When going around some of the shrines in Ghostwire, we can find plenty of gardens, and you'll find a lot of Zen garden features, but the best one comes in the main story mission, when you pass over to the other side. And apparently part of the afterlife looks a bit like a Zen garden, with large ornate stones, and neatly raked gravel, and a whole bunch of torii gates. That's another tranquil pass. But surprisingly, the best game for these quiet, peaceful places of reflection is in Destroy Humans 2. There are some beautifully detailed Zen gardens all over the map, and they've got everything a good Zen garden needs. Giant rocks, ornately raked gravel, water features, so many water features, bamboo, cherry blossoms, even natural rakes for raking the gravel. They look so beautiful. A very surprising gold star. Sightseeing Lightning Round. Once again it's time for the Sightseeing Lightning Round. Can we find 4 out of 5 of these famous landmarks? Tokyo Dome, Rainbow Bridge, Metropolitan Government Building, National Diet Building, and Tokyo Station. I thought Godzilla was going to smash this one, quite literally, but its depictions of landmarks in Tokyo is really bad. There's hardly any, especially when you consider other maps like San Francisco have loads of famous landmarks in them. I really feel like they did Tokyo dirty in this game, which is a shame. That's Godzilla's house, man, he lives there. You can't find any of these landmarks in World War Z either, but that's not surprising. And they're also missing from Destroy Humans 2. None are in Ghostwire either. Jet Set Radio and Yakuza are also missing all of them. This isn't going very well so far. In PGR4, with its completely accurate recreation, we can find the Metropolitan Government Building, but that's the only landmark on our list that sits in Shinjuku, so it's the only one we can find. Can we spot any landmarks while tearing around the highways in Tokyo Xtreme? Well, I couldn't see anything below, but we do get to pass over the Rainbow Bridge. But that's the only one. Yet another fail. Okay, come on Persona 5. You visit a ton of locations. Surely you can do it. We can hang out by the Rainbow Bridge. Check. Just outside the Dyer Building. Check. Tokyo Dome and its theme park. Check. And, that's it. That was so close, almost a pass, but not quite good enough. Is anyone going to pass this one? Well, there can only be one. Midnight Club 3. This oversimplified map contains many buildings, including Rainbow Bridge, we can drive straight across it. Tokyo Station, complete with animated trains. A nice and tall version of the Metropolitan Government Building. The National Dyer Building. And it turns out, this building is actually all about legislative assembly, and nothing to do with how much sushi the country is eating. And last but no means least, the Tokyo Dome, complete with this little theme park. That was the only game to pass that one, so it gets the gold star, of course. Right, okay, who's won this thing? In last place is Project Gotham Racing 4. Probably doesn't deserve to be at the bottom, to be honest. In some ways it's the most accurate, picking up a gold star for the layout round. But seeing how it only recreated a very small part of Tokyo, and the fact we can't properly explore because it's just a circuit racing game, means it scored poorly overall. Next we have World War Z. Not surprised to see this one down here, to be honest. Out of the 3 Tokyo levels, one was set on a cruise ship, and we didn't see any Tokyo landmarks. Tokyo Extreme Racer sits just above, the same amount of points overall but 1 gold star, means it just gets slightly ahead. A very decent recreation of Tokyo's highways, but that's about it. Above that we have Jet Set Radio. After a strong start, it only managed to score 1 additional point, with a total of 4 overall. With its cartoony aesthetic, it was clearly going for style more than accuracy. A fun game overall, but the city ended up being quite generic, with very few details pointing to the fact that it was set in a version of Tokyo. Godzilla Save the Earth also gets 4 points, but it managed to pick up 2 gold stars along the way. I think this is the game I'm most disappointed in. You can tell this game was developed in the USA and not Japan, because I think all the time and effort went into recreating all the American cities. They had a lot more detail and landmarks compared to the Tokyo map. Just a few more landmarks and this game would have been way higher. In 5th place is Yakuza Kiwami 2. Myself, and I'm sure along with many of you, would have expected this game to score higher. It does an amazing and highly detailed job of recreating the Kabuchi district, so it's a shame we don't get to see any more of Tokyo. Another title from this vast franchise may well have scored higher. Just missing out on the top 3, we have Destroy Humans 2, Reproded. I'm surprised to see this game all the way up here, with an impressive 8 points. Especially after featuring it in my London and San Francisco videos. This is its highest ranking so far. Their version of Tokyo may be simple, but it's also very gorgeous and detailed. In 3rd place, with 9 points, we have Midnight Club 3, Dub Edition Remix. When I decided I was going to do Tokyo, this game was the first one that came to mind. The version of Tokyo shown in this game is very oversimplified and lacks detail, but what it does best is recreate the landmarks. There's so many packed into such a small map, and it is a lot of fun to drive around and discover them all. In 2nd place, and just missing out on the top spot, is Persona 5 Royale, with 10 points. Out of all the games, this one recreates what life is like in Tokyo the best. The streets and metro are full of people, and there are lots of different shops and places we can visit. Okay, so many of the places you can visit are basically just 2D backdrops, rather than actual places you can explore, but it's still a nice little insight into what Tokyo has to offer. Which means in 1st place, we have Ghostwire Tokyo, with 10 points. The same as Persona 5, but crucially, 3 gold stars. Means it only just won, and in my opinion, I think this is the worthy winner. It might be missing all the busy hustle and bustle of Tokyo due to the fact that the streets are deserted, but it looks absolutely gorgeous. This game was developed by a studio in Tokyo itself, and you can tell they put so much time and effort into recreating every little detail of this interesting and slightly quirky city, and it truly is an amazing recreation of modern day Tokyo. And of course, it's the most Tokyo. Thank you for watching. Please watch other videos in this series if you enjoyed it, and of course do all the good stuff. Like, share, subscribe. You know the drill. It really helps out a small-time content creator such as myself. There's still plenty more cities to visit, so let me know down in the comments which one I should do next. Take care out there, and I'll see you soon.